Welcome to Podcast Vlogging Tips and Tricks with Alex Merced. On this podcast, we're going to talk about podcast hosting, podcast recording, promoting, and monetization. We'll also interview podcast hosts about what works and what doesn't work in the podcasting world. If you enjoy the show, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/AlexMerced. Also, if you need hosting for your podcast or your website, head over to libertydeal.info to find out about great deals along with special benefits for taking advantage of those deals. Thank you very much. Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced and welcome to another episode of Podcasting and Vlogging Tips and Tricks. And on today's episode, what I want to talk about is mainly other new places where you can kind of host a podcast. So basically, the way I've talked about hosting your podcast up until now was either by using a third-party hosting platform like Buzzsprout, or by starting your own WordPress website and using podcasting plugins that exist in the WordPress plugin repository. Now, either way are perfectly fine ways of podcasting. Okay, I use a Seriously Simple podcasting plugin on my WordPress install, and allows me to do as many podcasts as I want, which is very convenient, especially when you think that most podcast hosting services charge you per podcast that you start, so it can get very expensive if you do a lot of podcasts. And I like Buzzsprout and its features, but again, there are a lot of other alternatives, just so you guys are aware of. One that I learned about, that I heard people were doing, but I didn't understand how. Now I get it, because I'm using it for the company that I work for, Greco Financial Training. We have a podcast for the company that basically we're an education company and we train people in financial education. I started a podcast with them and I've used this route, which is using SoundCloud. Okay, so SoundCloud.com is mainly a site for musicians to share music. And for free, you get 3 hours worth of content. So you can put up 3 hours with whatever content you want, and you're good. So you can actually use it for podcasting. So you get an RSS feed and all that stuff. But again, for free, you only up to, once you recorded 3 hours worth of podcasts and posted them up there, then you can't upload anymore. So then you have to pay. Well, it's not much, and then you can upload as much as you want and all that stuff. So that's one alternative you can use for podcasting. And there's a couple other ones. I mean, other ones that people have used as far as third-party hosting platforms are things like Podbean. I know some people use. Libsyn is sort of the epitome of popular podcasting hosts. There's Cast.fm, which is a new one for like live streaming. Mixler.com is one that I've used on occasion to do audio live streaming, although I'm pretty sure you get an RSS feed that you could feed into a podcast if you wanted to. But I use Mixler, and that's Mixlr.com, to do audio live streaming, so that way people can actually talk to you during the stream or during the broadcast, and they can usually through a chat box. Another tool that's kind of used for that is blogtalkradio.com, where there on blogtalkradio.com, you can actually have people call into your show, and you can get a little sound bank and trigger up commercials and sounds as you do your online radio show, which is a lot of fun. I had a Blog Talk Radio account years and years ago. I'm sure it's a lot more fancier nowadays. And there's also platforms for like really small sort of micro audio, things like Anchor, Audioboo, which I think recently changed its name. So let me see if I have what it's called now. Audio Boom is what it's called now. Okay, and then on that note, these are other platforms you can use straight from your smartphone. There's things like Zcast, Castmate I already mentioned, which I think is at Cast.fm. Bumpers is another app that allows you to do podcasting straight from your phone. Spreaker is another service that hosts podcasts and allows you to host your podcast through them. So there are a lot of options on where to do your podcast, but it comes down to you wanting to make the content and do the podcasting. Again, my favorite way of doing it is recording it on my phone using the BossJock app. It makes it really easy for me to put in the commercials and the themes and other sounds without having to do too much post-editing. But bottom line is, there's plenty of places to go host your podcast. Now, next week, we're going to talk about Patreon.com, a great way for monetizing your podcast, especially if you've developed a very loyal audience. And we'll talk about strategies to make it, how to create that value. So that way they want to come listen to your podcast every week, and at the same time also voluntarily contribute monthly to support your podcast. So we'll talk about that next week. I'll see you guys then. Have a great day and enjoy.